are going to talk about human migration. If you go through the syllabus of course on women and economy, you will see that we have a full block on migration. So you can understand how important it is for us to understand various nuances of migration and how it affects women in particular. This program is in two parts. In the first part of the program, we will be talking about the concepts related to migration and feminization of migration. And in the second episode of the same program, we will be discussing international perspectives of women and migration. Today, as an expert, we have with us Dr. Bhupender Joshi, who is an associate professor with the Center for the Study of Regional Development, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. He is a widely published scholar and is internationally acclaimed resource person in demographic issues. Welcome, Professor Joshi, to our program. And today, as I discussed with the learners, that we will be first of all talking about the concepts, the various nuances about migration. So, would you please tell us what is understood by human migration?
Actually, when we study population of any place, its changes in growth rates, there are three factors which affect the population of any place. One is the births, another is deaths, and the third important component which changes the population of any place is migration.
Okay.
And this what is migration is when people move from one place of origin to the place of destination for the purpose of residence, either for permanently or for temporarily. That's called as a migration. Now, migration can be having different scales. We have migration like from the historical times, we know people moved from one continent to another continent.
Exactly.
Then from one country to another country, and also within the country. So, migration streams can be three: intercontinental, continental, and domestic migrations.
So, how do you measure this movement of people, as we call it, place of origin and destination? Is it a very fluid kind of measurement? So, how do you come to precise figures that so many people have moved from one place to another?
Yeah, you are absolutely right. It's very difficult to measure the migration because the concept of migration is because people move also for short distance and then they come back. Now, in case of census of India, we measure migration through two methods. One is called place of birth. If a person is recorded other than the place of birth, he is considered as a migrant. And from 1971 onwards, another component was added to that, that is the place of last residence. Then we ask the question to the people, what was your last residence? And if he says the last residence was different than what is the present place of residence, then we measure it as a migration. So, census takes two components. Migration based on the place of birth and migration based on the place of last residence. This is the way census collects data, and census is the only source which provides information on migration. Of course, there is another source which we call National Sample Survey Organization, but this source is they don't conduct survey on the census scale. It is a sample survey. So there are several rounds, and the latest round through which the data was collected in SSO was 64th round.
What are the possible causes of human migration?
You see, human migration, there can be two basic. One is voluntary migration, when a person moves of its own choice from one place to another place. Another is involuntary migration, which is forced to move from one place to another place. Now, if we talk about involuntary migration, then there could be many causes. It could be, for example, there is a push from the rural areas. They don't have the job opportunities and they are forced to move from rural areas to seek job opportunities. This could be one. Either there could be a digital disaster and people are forced to move from the place of origin to other place. Third could be because of political reasons also. There is unrest. So this could be involuntary migration, that the people are moving not because of their own choice, but they are compelled and forced to move. But other set of migration is which is voluntary migration. Again, voluntary migration we can divide into two. One is social migration, that is for marriages. People move for marriage, and usually in Indian situation it is the women who has to leave the parents' house and she has to go to the husband's house. So that's voluntary migration, but it will fall under the social migration. other voluntary migration is people move from better opportunities. They find that the jobs are opportunities in the urban areas or even any other place, so they will move. Or they also move for education purposes. Better education facilities are available there, so they will move. So this is called as a voluntary migration where the people, and third is that they find that other place is a new, lots of resources are available there, and for them it is better to move that. So they will move because there are enough opportunities and resources available. So these are called as voluntary migration. And one more, involuntary migration, whether you may fit it or involuntary or voluntary, because here is a deceit. For example, most of the women are deceived, are told that we are providing you better jobs, we are providing marriage, and we will give you all these kind of things. But when they leave the place of origin and move towards a destination, they find themselves in a helpless condition, because then they are at the whims of these people who have taken them. That kind of is called as a human trafficking. Although it is not a part of migration, but it is a part of migration itself, because there is a deceit. The person has not moved, voluntary is there, but he or she has been told some false things, because of which he moved out. So that is called as a human trafficking.
Yeah, that's a very important aspect which you have touched upon, that how migration is different from trafficking.
Absolutely.
I come to my next question to you, Dr. Joshi. We have heard about two terms like immigration and immigration.
Right.
What is the difference between the two? Because for our learners, it will be interesting to know that how are two terms used in different ways.
Now, one is spelled as immigration, immigration. That is when a person moves from the country of origin to some other country.
Okay.
That is immigrating from his own place to other country, that is called immigration. And another is spelled as IMM. That means when the person from other country is coming to the place of origin.
Okay.
So that is called immigration.
Okay.
So in migration to a country is immigration, and out migration from the country is immigration. EMI. That is the simplest way.
Yeah, you have made it very easy for our learners. Then comes the next point, which is what are the impacts of migration?
Now, before I would like to this impact, that's a very important. We know this domestic migration, as you know.
Okay.
Now, domestic migration can be short term, long term, and within the villages also.
Within the villages also?
For example, person moves from within the village to another nearby village also. Next, which is short term, they move for a marriage purpose, because usually marriages are done within the cultural society, within the cultural systems. They try to see that. So that is a very short term migration. Then is another migration is within the district also.
Okay.
In fact, the majority of migration in the country is within the district. You will be surprised to know that nearly 85% of the migration in India is accounted within the state itself.
Okay.
Within the state they move, and most of them is for the marriage purposes, as we know, and also they move to the nearest urban town for the job opportunity purpose. Now you have asked another question: why do people migrate? As I told you, migration reasons could be social reasons, educational reasons, and economic reasons, and of course then the natural catastrophe or disasters, because of people have to move, or there could be political reasons for that. Now, when we talk about social reasons for migration, the most important is the marriage. Because in our system of institution, usually the girls get married and they move to the place of their husbands. That is one of the major.
So now we call it migration.
Migration. It's a migration, of course, but social migration.
Okay.
Second is work opportunity. Now, since most of the rural areas have already either there is underemployment, or there is also disguised employment. So therefore people want to move to better avenues, and one of the way is to go to that place, and usually this kind of opportunities are found in the urban areas. So there is a majority of the migration from rural areas to urban areas for the sake of better opportunity, income, for economic purposes. Third is also nowadays, which has during last 2 decades, especially after globalization, because now the education has become a very important component. Quite a lot of people move from the place of origin for seeking better educational services and facilities. And since better education services and facilities are usually available in the urban areas, so they move from rural areas to And another is, now we have also seen in the urban areas there is a trend, there is a demand for domestic workers. And we have seen during last 2 decades, the people from the rural areas, usually they used to come, only male migration used to take place. But now of late we have seen they move along with their families. Why? Because they feel that the male person is also getting job, but the female is put into the domestic purpose. And we have seen during last 1 decade, there is quite a huge proportion of migration is for domestic purposes.
For domestic
especially for women now.
What do we understand by feminization of migration?
Migration was a universal phenomena where both men and women used to move for better opportunities, better purposes, and better job opportunities. That was the normal course. And of course, social migration used to take place. Women used to get married. But of late, especially after globalization, the organized sector of work has come down. So it is now unorganized sector, at least what we call home-based activities, home-based work. And for this purpose, now these entrepreneurs or the businessmen and the manufacturers, they are looking for a cheap labor. And what is the kind of cheap labor? They usually try to employ women in that, because the women stay at home also and they provide them some kind of a work activity at a very cheaper rate. So therefore we have seen during last 1 decade, this women is now migrating in large numbers. One. Second, feminization we have seen, because of the development of certain urban centers and tourism activities also developed. Now there is a demand for sex tourism in some of the cities, and this is a very big market for some of the people. So they usually take girls on the pretext of providing them some kind of job or providing them better avenues, or even they tell them falsely that we'll get you married without dowry, because parents in the rural areas, they feel that they cannot provide dowry to their daughter. So once a person goes to them and tells, okay, we'll get your daughter married without dowry, he willingly sends the girl with this person. And that is also, as I told you, that is basically human trafficking, because no doubt there is a willingness, but the willingness is already deceived, because neither the girl nor the parents have been told the actual facts why the girl has been trafficked or moved from the place of origin to the place of death. So these are, two, feminization is for domestic work activities to a large extent, home-based work activities, and also for this human trafficking. This is a human big parameter at present which is taking place.
How does trafficking impact women as a gendered category?
You see, what is happening, usually we have seen that the particular age group of women, normally between 15 to 24 people, they are in demand for the human trafficking purpose, for sexual exploitation purposes. So this group of population which is actually lured by these middlemen, they ask their parents, even they tell themselves also false hopes are given. So they are moved, and when they are moved to unknown areas, with the result, then they are trapped in a situation where they have to forcefully do some acts which they don't want to do. And then their parents also do not have much idea what they are doing, because they don't have their addresses, they don't have where these girls have been taken. So with the result, the whole adulthood of the women is wasted, destroyed, and ultimately once they become around 30 years, then they are thrown back, and neither society accepts them back nor the people accept them where they have gone. So with the result, their lives are wasted.
Can you enlighten us about the research which has gone in this kind of activity, so that our learners know that it is not only a kind of a propaganda, but it is a reality which is happening with women, especially in Andhra Pradesh?
You see, there are Child and Women Department as well as UNIFEM, now it is renamed as UN World. They have done a lot of studies on these issues, and there are several non-governmental organizations who are working on these issues. And we have found out through research activities that there is a huge proportion of girls who are lured for this marriage purposes, and then falsely, and then now I will tell you one more component which has come into the figure, because this Haryana, the sex ratio balance is,
and
they don't get even daughters for the marriage. Now, new component has come into the being that some of the parents want to get their sons married, and usually the girls are selected from Bihar and West Bengal for this purpose.
So they are trafficked.
They are asked that you are coming for marriage purpose. Marriage is just a social institution for them. But when these women or girls reach to their places, and they are working in the field. They don't, because they have different culture. They don't understand the culture. So they are suffering there, and ultimately they don't have a freedom of speech, freedom of discussion, freedom of talking. What they are literally slaves in their houses, and yes, they are provided some kind of food, that's all, but the nature of work they do. In fact, one of our student has recently done a study in these two villages of Haryana, where they found that nearly in these two villages they found 50 women from Bihar were bought for marriage purposes, and then this girl student talked to these women, what are their problems, and they confess that the basic problem was culture difference. They have serious cultural differences,
language barriers,
food, language, and then also they feel that they are not at all having, because if they would have been married in the nearby places, they would have gone to their parents' place regularly. So this is, they are away from the main roots. So this is another issue which these women are facing in such situations.
Okay. So under the technical terms, will you call this kind of relocation trafficking or migration?
Well, that's why the definition is very vague, in the sense that we literally do not, but it's a migration kind of thing. But migration, as I've told you, could be voluntary or involuntary. We are not putting it any of the situations, because they have their parents. But it is ultimately a migration, but traffic migration.
Okay. So it's a new category which has emerged, in which the parents are involved, and the girl who is being relocated knows, but she is basically made to behave like a trafficked human being.
Other kind of women who are trafficked and used for sexual exploitation, slightly there is a variation between the two, because those girls are forced for sexual exploitation, which is against their wishes. Here in the initial stages they have come with the purpose of marriage, and that was a voluntary for them. But once they have reached to the place, now the status as a married woman should get in a house, they are not getting that kind of a status. So that kind of situation problems they are facing in these new locations. So there's a problem of adjustment, there's a problem of, it will take time. Maybe after some kind of time, as long they live there for longer period, then they might get adjusted. But when the girl comes new, within 4 or 5 years, it is very difficult for her to get adjusted to the new environment, away from the parents, away from their culture. So, and then on top of that, they are being exploited, because ultimately the purpose for which they have got the marriages is for the work condition. They are working in the fields. So that they are exploiting them to a large extent. That is one of the issue of the feminization or migration of this kind.
Yes, which has become a very serious concern.
It's a serious concern,
especially in states where the sex ratio is
low,
coming
because
down.
Now Punjab and Haryana, they don't get girls for marriage, and they seek girls from other states to come and get married.
We have read about newspaper reports that a lot of older men are also getting married to younger girls who are being relocated from northeast parts of the country. What do your studies show about this trend? Because this must also be creating a kind of oppression for a young girl of say 18 years getting married to a widower of 45-50 years old.
Yeah, there are some cases reporting in the newspapers, and our research also shows that there is now this trend is increasing day by day, because the people who have money, they want to flash this money, and on the basis of this, and the basic purpose, I tell you, where from these girls come, you must understand their socio-economic condition. The parents are somehow feeling that the girl is a burden on them. They are unable to provide them dowry and other. So somehow, if some middleman goes and tells them, we are going to get you a daughter married without any dowry, without any providing any sort of, you don't have to spend any money. So the parents feel very happy. They do not understand to whom are the daughters, the marriage is taking place. And this person also provides them false information. So on the pretext of this, we have seen some reporting, some cases, but there is a lot of research to be done because we don't have probably, data is not available. Problem in this kind of research is that we don't have any source of data. The only source of data could be researchers who have done some MPhil, PhD work, or otherwise the census does not report that. Now let me tell you one more thing. We have a census reporting, they also find out migration by causes. What are the various causes of migration, and there has been some data available on that. For example, reasons for migration for employment, we have seen that around 14% of migration has taken place because of the employment. They have got better jobs. Then for business, there is around 2% migration. Education, migration counts for 3%. People move because of education. But marriage, as I told you, that the major component of migration, 44% of the people move for marriage purpose. But if you take this for the women, then it is around 65% women move for the migration purpose. Of course, this migration is a very short distance. Another is because of the migration due to hazardous conditions or due to natural calamities. Of course, that's a very small, and this can be this migration takes place, but the person can be returned back also in situation. So we have these various broad types of migrations, and this clearly indicates that one of the serious and now another thing I would like to put, when a people move from the place of origin as to place of destination, now it affects the population composition of both origin places and also at destination. I will give one example. Now suppose working population moves from village, who are in the age group of, let us suppose, 24 to 44 years. Now what will happen? This is a active population who has moved from place A to place B. Now what will happen? At place B, you will get more people who are workers. So their dependency decreases. But at place A, where these working people have moved, they have only now old people left. So migration study is very important for the demographers, for the population perspective, and also from the work perspective point of view, because it changes the composition population, and with the change of composition you will have a complete change in the economic structure of both originating place as well as the destination place. So there are both negative aspects of migration, positive aspects of, but it needs an in-depth understanding, in-depth research. What is the reason of migration, whether the migration who have moved to that place, has it helped in to the originating place, or has it, for example, we know people move from Kerala, as you know, they go to for work towards the Gulf countries. Now, and then whatever incomes they earn, this money comes back to the India, and there is a larger development taking place in the Kerala place. So when we talk about migration, it has both positivities, negativities. Now, for example, in the urban areas, what is the serious issue of rural to urban migration? We have got urbanization rate is increasing, but slums, the slumization is increasing, and now what is the quality of life in urban areas are deteriorated. So, and if suppose there are skilled people who are moving, then it's okay. But if there is a migration without, and that's why you have two streams of migration. One is called pull migration, and another is called push migration. Pull migration is if a place has got enough opportunities to attract the people. So that's very good. As long as people are pulled and they are, suppose if I go to Mumbai, I have provided job there and all other facilities. So it's a pull for me. So I would like to move. But another migration is called pushback migration. It's not that I am moving to Mumbai, not in the hope that I have got job, but because I don't have anything at my originating place, so I go to the destination place, and there I create problem both for the natives as well for myself, because nothing is available for housing is a big issue there. There is traffic congestion, all these, and so many problems take place in the urban area. So that issue is also one of the serious issues of my consequence of migration.
So you would like to sum it up as that pulls of migration is a positive aspect.
Absolutely.
And pushes of migration is the negative or aftermath of migration. Thank you so much, Dr. Joshi, for being with us today. and you have really enlightened our learners about very fine nuances of migration which might not have occurred to them while reading through the material. And I hope today's discussion our learners will get an in-depth insight into the causes, impacts, and most importantly, what is migration. Thank you so much for being with us today and taking out time to be with us in the studios.
Thank you very much.